think representation is massively important. If you cannot see yourself as a little girl sitting on as a CEO of a board, like what are you aspiring to? And I think it's important to see yourself and feel like you belong, because it's the most fundamental human need in the world. It's to have the sense of feeling that you belong. We're so driven by, the next big thing, but actually if you put the purpose first, I think that's just a game changer.
Hi, everyone. Today I have Hacinta Naidoo, Head of D&I Strategy and Governance with me. Hi, Hacinta. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy to have you here and to know more about your position, your team. And as you mentioned before, D&I, which you actually are in Strategy and Governance. So
Yeah.
let's start with, what is that? Why do you have Strategy and Governance in your title with D&I? Because you said there's so many D&I.
There is. I mean,
teams.
well, first of all, thank you so much for having me and thank you for asking me. It's great to be here. A little bit nervous because it's my first podcast, so go lightly on me. I think strategy and governance is such an interesting title, especially at Zalando, but it's also a really fun one. So D&I at Zalando has a decentralized D&I strategy. And that is actually really interesting in the sense that normally D&I sits within an HR function and they don't really affect the rest of the business. Whereas in Zalando, because it's a fundamental core part of the organization, it's one of our 5 key strategic pillars in the ZGS. So it actually sits in the central team under the central development team. So my boss, who looks after me, looks after the sustainability, and he also looks after D&I, and that's why it's decentralized. So we work with the P&O organization, we work with consumer and partner organization to really help drive their D&I initiatives to really be embedded in the organization, but ultimately the strategy, the governance sits with us.
Being a decentralized team and looking into the different pillars and how they actually implement D&I and also have an outlook on how they are working and taking care, making sure that D&I is respected. What will be like a project or initiative?
Oh, that's a big question. So we set the overall strategy for the organization. So at the moment, we're going through a process of re-looking at the 11 commitments that Zalando committed to in 2021. They did an amazing job of laying the foundation. And now the world has changed, right? And also D&I has moved on since 2021. So my job and my team's job mainly is to really look at, okay, are we in the right place where we are supposed to be? Do we have the right commitments in place? Is like gender still the right thing to go after? Absolutely. But do we put as much emphasis on maybe race and ethnicity or on disability? And then how does that feed into, everything that we're doing from an external perspective? Like, do we shooting our ads correctly? Are we shooting our marketing campaigns correctly? Do we have the right partnerships on board? And so my team really looks after that, but we work with the functions because they're the subject matter experts. I can't tell you what to buy, but I can give you advice on what's the right strategy in order to go forward to have a more inclusive assortment. So we work very closely with the functions to make sure that D&I is then driven through those functions. People get frustrated with D&I because it's not quick changes, right? You can't change a society, you can't change a culture really quickly. And so yes, there's things that evolve, like women in tech has evolved, women in leadership has evolved, disability has evolved. No organization is getting any aspect 1000% right that they say, tick, we can move on now. Like, it's about a journey, it's about a process, it's about adapting, it's about learning. And that's where Zalando's really great at the moment, is that they are able to adapt, able to learn, able to then obviously share that knowledge with like other organizations, which is very rare when it comes to D&I.
One part of the in the disability world that I think is still very unknown, or not very touched upon, is like the unseen disabilities, where I think it's sad, of course, but a lot of people still have bias in them. And I mean, of course, I'm not going to lie. If I go into the elevator and someone just goes elevated by 1 or 2 floors, my first, like, why didn't you walk? And then I have to remind myself, I don't know what's going on with this person. So, is this also a topic that you and your team have to also, of course, be very mindful and make sure that in communications and so on,
Yeah.
it's regarded?
Massively. So, disability inclusion is a big topic for Zalando. It's not only looked at from an internal perspective, but obviously from an external perspective as well. Like, are we a double compliant, for instance? Can people shop on our website? You know, so it's a big topic from an internal and external perspective. And Zalando has done really great stuff from making sure that the buildings are accessible, from making sure that, like, we have um closing doors and everything, like from a facilitation point of view. And then we obviously they have an incredible adaptive line. I think you are right. Like, 1 in 4 people have a disability, whether it's seen or unseen. And I think people don't really know what the person is going through, right? And unless you ask, like, you will never know. I think it's really hard in Europe because you have to have a certificate to say that you have a disability,
And you don't even always get it.
and you
Sometimes
don't
it.
even always get it, and it's tough,
Mhm.
right? And so I think we need to do better, not as an organization but as a society, of how do we make sure these people are feel seen, they feel like they belong, and then how do we actually enhance that? So how is people part of the community? Like, how are we fostering that? And I think that for me is more important at the moment. In the new strategy that's coming up, it's a massive part of my strategy, like I said, that we want to concentrate on. And Zalando's done, like I said, incredible strides. But how do we further and advance it? And then how, because we have 5,000 brands on our platform, or
Mhm.
plus 5,000 brands, how do we enable the industry to take this really seriously? So how do we go to a big brand, for instance, of a shoe brand, and say, okay, right, can we co-create something with you,
Mhm.
because this is going to enhance someone else's life? Or, we go to the valuable 500 and say we want to learn more at the moment when we're doing, I don't know, hiring policies or something. And so that's where we really need to push and pull at the moment next year.
We did talk a lot about D&I and being mindful of the time.
Okay.
And of course, I want to know about the 3 pieces that you brought.
Oh, right. Okay.
So, the first piece that I asked you to ask was something that is close to your heart.
Yes. So I
There
have
comes a phone.
yes, there's pictures, because I was never going to physically bring these things in, and I'll explain why. So the first thing is I have, and I will try, I don't know, where is the camera? So you guys will tell me.
It's a
But
service. Do you call
yeah,
it a
it's
service?
a tea set.
It's a
So
tea
it's
set.
my granny's tea set.
It's so beautiful. So it's a golden white. Oh, I don't know if you can show it to the camera. I don't know if people can. Otherwise, they can see the pictures on Instagram and inside
Yes.
Zalando on
Yes.
LinkedIn.
So it's my granny's tea set that she owned, and it's been passed down. It is so delicate that
I wouldn't
I
have
was
brought it to
like,
the.
I would
No.
never bring this. And actually don't know how it's moved like 4 or 5 times from different countries. I actually don't know how it survived, but it's resilient in that sense. But it's very chipped and toothed. But my granny was really important to me. I think she'd be like so excited to see the journey that I went on, in terms of, I come from a very small town in South Africa. And then to make it in living in Germany, I think it would have rocked her world. And I always say, like, I did a an event in my previous organization of view your ancestors' wildest dreams, and I genuinely think I'm like my grandmother's wildest dream, like living as, this adventurer in Germany at the moment, working for an organization such as Zalando. So she is always my inspiration, hence the tea set. And actually, she sparked something that I didn't know I loved. Like, I love tea sets now.
So that was the first one, and now it's.
Yeah, and now when I go to different countries, I buy tea sets.
Oh, that's nice. So
I
you. So now you have a collection of tea sets at
I
home.
do.
How many do you
I
have?
have tea sets of 7. I mean, I don't buy all the tea sets I go to. It's just whether they're cute or not.
Yeah.
So I have 7. I used to collect gin. So every single country I used to go to, I used to collect gin, because I used to think, okay, gin doesn't go off, right?
Yeah.
And so that's my child's legacy. I'm going to give them bottles of gin that doesn't go off.
That's the way to go.
And I was like, okay, maybe tea sets. Tea
Tea
sets
set.
are better.
I really like how you talk about your grandma and actually saying that how she would be proud of you, knowing where you're coming. Also, as you told me before about how maybe your family, your ancestors came to South Africa, and now the position you actually
Mm.
have here, and how you are making sure that everyone is seen, everyone is included. I mean,
I think she always knew I was going to do something on social activism. I've always been a kid that had empathy even as a kid. Like I never liked unfairness.
Mhm.
Like if everything was had to be fair, everything. And so I think she'd be like, "Yeah, it sounds about right."
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So, second piece,
hmm
something that is has to do with your career or education.
I used to work at Ralph Lauren previously to this organization, and had a pin of solidarity that they created in 2020. And it was always in the US. And somehow one of my senior vice presidents says, I want to bring it to Europe. And he just said, Jacinta, bring it to Europe. And that's it. He said yes. And then he threw the project and said, catch. And I was like, okay. So I didn't know what I was doing. And so the pin was €10 and it would all go to charity. So
Mhm.
I think 95% of the profits all goes to charity, and obviously the 5% pays for the actual pin itself, right? And so I've never launched a product from a product into like the ether of being sold in stores, being sold online, the marketing of it. And so everything had to be done via me. And I was like, great.
Fun.
Yeah, exactly. So
Challenging.
it was, yeah. And also, it was a really eye opening experience to see what like buyers go through in merchandisers and marketing and the approval
Yeah.
process. But the one thing that I'm very proud of from the Pin of Solidarity is that the charity, the 98%, the 95% goes to a charity. I think it was incredible because there was this little pin that we took that, people didn't even know about it in Europe, and it was sold across the whole of Europe. It wasn't just sold in the UK, and people really galvanized about it around it for racism, and I love that.
I think that's an amazing piece that you brought, and you can be so proud of yourself, and also actually taking that project and doing it end to end without having
Yeah.
any actually big project management skills or
None whatsoever. But I had an incredible person that helped me along the way. She is still currently the vice president of e-commerce, and she was a massive supporter. And the senior vice president of the Ralph Lauren, he again was a massive supporter of it. So like, while I very much remember very tireless nights, I can just say they were very big advocates towards the cause, and they still are. Like I know that the pun is still going strong. I know they're
nice.
doing it in their third year. Like, I think it's an initiative that started from literally a concept to now it's being rolled over year after year. And I think that's also really inspiring.
Now,
Yes.
a Zalando piece.
Yes.
There comes a phone. What is
Well, actually, no, I took so I do have it physically, but I didn't want to break it either. Again, it goes back to China.
what? Oh,
It's a dinner plate.
a
I
plate.
know. Like I said, I think the older you get, the more I gotten closer to like dinner
But
service.
you just have been here since February. Hold on.
I know. No. So it's and I will share the picture as well again on Insta, like with you, so you can show the audience. I was invited to Copenhagen Fashion Week to attend the Visionary Awards that Zalando sponsors,
Mm.
and at the dinner you get a personalized item, and mine was with my
With your name?
yeah, with
Oh, okay.
my
Because like you
name.
stole a plate, but no, if it
No,
has
no,
your
it
name, then it
had
makes
my
sense.
name.
So yeah, what should I do with that? So it makes sense. It was a gift. We
Exactly.
called you when
I know. But no, and the Copenhagen Fashion Week this year was so inspired. Like, I don't know if anybody has an opportunity to watch it, but if you don't, I would highly encourage you to do so. It was a designer called Sinead O'Dwyer, and she had the most inclusive assortment and like models on the runway. And sometimes you always feel like this job is hard. This DNI is not an easy job because there's just so much emotions. There's so many things going on in the world. There's so many people that you have to fight for, and
Mhm.
sometimes you don't know where to start or how to start. And then, like I said, progress is slow. So you yourself, even as a DNI practitioner, it's hard work, and like unless you pushing it, no one's pushing you to push it.
Yeah.
So like you have to have like so much self like work to say like this is the right thing to do. I truly believe in this. And so when you see things like this happening in the world where there's a diverse designer that did it from concept creation all the way to how her models looked, it's
And being on
so,
Fashion
and
Week then
being
actually
on
and
Fashion Week and being the winner of Copenhagen Fashion Week. And you just like, it's like one of those like most inspiring moments. And so Copenhagen Fashion Week for me and Zalando is definitely a moment like I'm gonna cherish forever. And also I got to work with the PR team here. and just again how tirelessly they work, and you're like, what, like swans, they like swans.
I I think this is one of my favorite pieces. I like this. I like how really the connection is behind it. And
Yeah,
so this fashion designer did it on her own,
yeah.
and I mean, she wants to make the fashion world a more inclusive place,
Hmm.
but then being in the same room and seeing, okay, you with your part are really having an impact, and she is actually giving exactly
Yeah,
that what you need
yeah,
for like an organization like Zalando. So it's really nice, and
it
I think
was
it gives you then this motivation to really keep doing and working because you
for
see
sure.
it does have somehow an impact and people are reacting to
Yeah,
it.
and then you also see like, okay, and when something can be inclusive to everybody, like how beautiful it can actually look. Like I think the world tries to teach you like, actually, if everybody just was a size zero, it's beautiful, and actually, no, it's not. Like,
It's not diverse.
and
It's
no,
like,
it's
well,
not, and also it's
yeah,
not like in seeing these people in their different body types and
yeah.
different, I think she had a visually impaired lady that also walked the cat. Like, it's all these different people that were on the runway, and you were like, this is just inspiring and beautiful. And I think that for me is just, yeah, it was an iconic moment. I think representation is massively important. If you cannot see yourself as a little girl sitting on as a CEO of a board, like what are you aspiring to? And I think, representation is extremely important. I think it's more important now than ever with the US elections that's coming to play. Obviously how we look at the world is changing and the landscape is changing, but I think it's important to see yourself and feel
Mhm.
like you belong, because it's the most fundamental human need in the world. It's to feel, have the sense of feeling that you belong. And
Yeah.
so I think DNI has, it's a culture driver. It has a way of making sure that inclusion is a part of that. And so I think it's important.
What would you tell our viewers what they should dare to do more?
Put purpose first. I think, it's we so driven by consumerism, we're so driven by performance, we're so driven by, the next big thing. But actually, if we just put purpose, like what is our actual purpose?
Mhm.
If we put that first, I think that will unlock so much more. And then the revenue will come and then everything else will come. But if you put the purpose first, I think that's just a game changer.
The why. Why
The
am I doing
why.
this?
Yeah.
And then you can go for the how and
Yeah,
what's coming out of it then. Well,
exactly.
thank you so much for being
No
today
worries.
here.
Again, thank you for having me.